Hi, my name is Holly Miller, and I am a second grade teacher in Hudsonville, Michigan, and I am excited to share with you a little bit about my journey with Ebly as part of the teacher feature. Now, I know most of the time it's sharing tips and so on about Ebly. However, one of my teaching partners, Katie Farrell, shared some insight already, and much of what she shared is exactly what I could have shared. So I want to share with you how I got to this point in my career, and maybe it will inspire some of you to keep going with this literacy, with your literacy journey to help your students. I, as a child, was hated reading, hated absolutely everything about it. I was a horrible reader. Anytime I would read 3 or 4 pages and have to back up and see what I just read because I had no clue what I just read. I remember, I think it was 4th grade, going to a birthday party, and one of my friends got all of these chapter books about some girl with horses or something, and everyone was so excited about these chapter books, and I will never forget that feeling of sitting there and thinking how grateful I was that nobody gave me those books for my birthday, because I would have never been able to read them or had the desire to try to read them because reading was so miserable for me. This continued on all throughout my schooling. I remember having to read books for school, and I know like a 9th grade English class, we read the book together in class, and I remember how grateful I was because we stopped and talked about the book so often. I got through school with like a C average, did well enough to pass, well enough to get through. My inspiration for becoming a teacher was not about reading. I didn't really know what else to go into, and I had babysat for a child that was special needs and decided to go in and be a special ed teacher. I got a job right away teaching gen ed, and in 2nd grade, coincidentally, I've had a lot of journeys that have led me back to 2nd grade now, and knew that I needed to know how to teach reading, so I got my master's in reading, which was all well and good, very basic. Didn't necessarily help me a ton in the classroom, but it did give me a better start. I did attend a training that did give me some more of a foundation. I will also, I'll add this one. I did kindergarten student teaching, and when I was in student teaching, I learned that vowels had 2 sounds. I learned that there was a long sound and a short sound, and that sounds so silly to admit that and say that, but I was learning my letter sounds as I student taught in kindergarten. So as the years went on, I continued I actually had several different positions, did special ed and gen ed, was autism consultant in our district, and moved across the state over here to Hudsonville, and continued my own personal journey and trying to figure out like what was going on. About 11 years ago, I read my first book that I read for pleasure, cover to cover, and loved it and enjoyed it, and knew at that moment that literacy was my passion. It was a Jodi Picoult book, House Rules. I know I started with a big one. It was not a small book, but that lit my fire. And as time continued on, and I was teaching a curriculum that I don't care for here, that I had to do, I had to figure out how to make it work for my students and my students that were struggling. This journey has continued on. I found Ebly about 5 years ago when my principal introduced it to myself and my teaching partner. And to say it's life-changing, not only for me as a teacher, but me as a person, me as a reader myself, is an understatement. A moment that kind of it all came together for me was this summer. I found my ACT scores from high school. I've always told my husband that I was a reader. It's not that I couldn't read, I just couldn't read because I couldn't understand it after a certain amount of time. I could read small snippets and little pieces, but to read a longer text and understand it and remember it was such a challenge. And my husband always laughed at me, but this summer I found my ACT scores from high school. And I was on the 87th percentile for math, the 4th percentile for reading. And when I saw those numbers, it didn't make me sad, actually. It made me really proud of the journey that I've gone through as an adult to give myself those skills. And I told my husband, I really want to retake it. I would love to see what I would do today. He said, it doesn't matter what you would do today, but I still would love to do that. Maybe at some point I will. But my heart has been with my students that I tell them, I've already told my class how much I hated reading. And I've told them that my hope for them is by the end of second grade, they don't feel the same as I felt, and that I can give them the skills to be able to be a reader. You don't have to love it. I just want you to be able to do it. I want you to be able to see a word and attack it and decode it and so on. So this teacher feature is not about the skills because, man, what Ebbly has given me, what it's given my students, is beyond anything that I could ever imagine, and I'm so grateful. But my hope for all of you who are fighting this fight with Ebbly and doing this for your students and getting your students the skills they need is keep going. Don't give up. Keep doing it for your kids. They deserve it, and kudos to all of you for doing what you're doing.